Hello and welcome to Simply Sacred, a loving gaze at the inner world in a modern society. Today we have Aura Martinez here, and she is a self-discovery and empowerment coach. Hello, Aura. Aura and Aurora.
Hello. Thank you for having me here.
And you're calling in from Italy, hey?
Yes, from Milan, just landed today. And so, just so everyone know, because I find this context to be very valuable to the message that I'm going to be sharing with you today. I am so jet lagged. I only slept 1 hour. And it could have been very easy for me to say, you know what? Because I don't look this way. And then this room is getting dark in Milan right now. Oh my God, I'm not going to do this. But you know what? The message is very valuable. What I have to share is very valuable. How I look, how this looks doesn't even matter. But that has a lot to do with our relationship that we have with ourselves and how we view ourselves. But I wanted to share that really quick.
Wow, that's powerful. Yeah. And so many times we can think, oh, I have to be polished or else I can't show up. So, how many missed opportunities do we have if we're feeling that way?
I know I've missed a lot of opportunities. So I'm going to be vulnerable here. Years ago, for decades, I actually had a hatred towards a part of me. And that was my hair, because my hair is very curly. And so, unless I looked polished,
Mm.
unless I looked a certain way, I would not show up. And sometimes we may think, oh, that's just because we're afraid of the camera, we're afraid of showing up. A lot of times, it's much more deeper. And it has to do with how we see ourselves, how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about ourselves in regards to others. See, the moment you see your worth, you see your beauty, even in moments where you don't think it's beautiful, that's when I feel like the true beauty shines. That's when other people are able to see the beauty in you.
Mm.
Haven't you noticed sometimes, and I've noticed this, some women that are very gorgeous, and yet the way they see themselves, they don't see themselves as gorgeous. And interesting enough, when they don't see themselves as gorgeous, men can sense that,
Mm.
right? And treat her not as gorgeous.
Mm.
And so, this is why it's so important that we are mindful of how we are viewing ourselves, how we are feeling about ourselves, how we view our place in this world, because it literally affects so many things about ourselves, our life, the relationship that we have with absolutely everything, whether that is men or women or money
Mm.
or job opportunities. And I know what it's like when you don't see yourself clearly. It's perfect that I look this way, that the room looks this way, and that I am so jet lagged, right?
Yeah.
Because I can be that example. You got to see yourself so clearly beyond all this stuff that we tend to pay so much mind to.
So you're modeling that you've done that inner work. And then do you help others? Do you help be a mirror for others? Is that part of your work as an
Yes.
empowerment coach?
Yes. Because
Oh.
it's so hard sometimes to see ourselves. We need someone to shed that light. We need someone to mirror to us how we're speaking about ourselves, how we're speaking about our lives, how we may subconsciously talk about ourselves in our life.
Mm.
Because I know I needed that for myself. I know I needed that. And it's so valuable when you have that, because you're able to see things, that the blind spots and the things that you probably didn't even know existed within you, that didn't even belong to you.
So I'm curious then, what is your story of discovery of that for yourself? What was the learning curve? Do you have a story that you share with others?
Yeah. I started out as a wellness and life coach, helping people get out of the sugar roller coaster they would find themselves in. And when I noticed, yeah, that's because I had my own weight loss journey, as a matter of fact, right? I was 144 pounds, went from 144 pounds all the way to 112 pounds, eating right, working out. So that was part of my journey. And interesting enough, through my own journey and also my clients' journey, I realized that what my clients needed was not a meal plan. It was not an exercise plan. It was none of that. The more I kept coaching them, the more I realized that they were having a relationship with themselves and with food and their body that wasn't allowing them to make the right choices. Because think about it, if you are struggling with something emotionally and your trigger may be that you're eating a lot of sweets, the problem is not, let me give you this meal plan. It sounds like the right thing to do, right? But if you do not get to the core of what is actually making you do the things that you do, it's
Mhm,
like slapping a band-aid on a big wound and it's never going to heal. And
mhm,
so that's what made me transition to being from being a wellness and life coach to being a self-discovery and empowerment coach. Because I realized if we were to get to the core of who we really are, we can literally transform several areas of ourselves and our life
mm.
almost simultaneously because we are the common denominator in everything.
Oh.
We really are. And
Mhm,
interesting enough, in my entrepreneurial journey, it forced me to look at myself a lot deeper. It
mhm,
forced me because it was so hard for me to show up online and I didn't understand why. Right? I have no problem speaking, but I had a hard time and it was because of that wound. And so I really understood how important it is that relationship that we have with ourselves, healing whatever wounds we have. It's so important.
mm.
Yeah.
I know for myself with food, like for me, I had big T trauma. Like there'd be little T trauma and big T trauma. And so when we go, oh, I don't think I'm enough, so I self-soothe with a little bit of food, like that would be little T trauma. But big T trauma, I had really intense trauma from a young age and sexual abuse, where I didn't have any kind of overweight issues till later on, where I think that big T trauma got hit even more. But there was a relationship with, I remember hiding with the sugar bowl at 3 years old, hiding from my stepfather, the only joy or dopamine having a little bit of sugar from that sugar bowl, but then being willing to hide and sneak. But I knew I'd get physically punished if I was caught, right? And so
Yeah.
I have heard of sexual abuse survivors having built up certain things in their body, like sugar and yeast in their body in order to stay
Yeah.
safe. A lot of people carry weight to keep people
Oh,
away.
yes. Yes. I did a talk, I don't remember when or what podcast. It was about eliminating the weight from the inside out. And the
Mm,
weight that I was talking about was not the physical weight, but it was the emotional and the mental weight. So the second time I gained weight, because after I lost all that weight, I gained almost all of it back. It was because my dad had passed away. And I did not allow myself to feel the grief, also because my mom was grieving terribly
mm,
because they knew each other since they were 11 years old. And so for her, it was just, I sensed there was a much more profound pain. And so I did not allow myself to feel my own pain. So what did I do instead? I used to eat a lot at night,
yeah.
a lot, a lot. So I would literally binge eat at night, not eat much during the day. And I didn't really realize that I was doing that. See, how many times do we do things and we not realize it? When we're wanting to live how we want to live in any capacity, whether that is to have the body that we want, to have the health that we want, to have the relationship that we want, to have the money that we want, to have the business that we want, to have the job or career that we want. We need to be so conscious, aware of ourselves. And I know that for some, it may not come automatic,
Mhm,
but we need to learn to train ourselves to be aware. Because for as long as we are unaware of what we're doing and why we're doing it, we're going to keep engaging in habits that only feed whatever it is that is going on out of our awareness. And again, that has to do with our relationship with ourselves. I think that a lot of times we're not our own best friends. It's easier for us to go to someone else and be like, hey, how you doing? How is everything? You know what? You can do it. You're going to make it. You're amazing.
mm,
It's so easy for us to do that for someone else, but we don't do that for ourselves. And so during that time of grief that I did not allow myself to feel, I didn't give myself that chance to be like, you know what? Aura, how are you? How are
Mm,
you feeling? Well, it's okay to cry, right? So it's okay for you to feel what you feel.
mm,
And so it's so important that we prioritize that relationship that we have with ourselves, that we prioritize being our own friend, that we prioritize being our own cheerleader. Because to the degree also that we are that way with ourselves, that we give ourselves that space, we're able to do the same for others.
mm. I really feel like this message is going to resonate with a lot of listeners
Yeah.
and viewers, depending how they're getting this message. But I really feel that, and the soothingness that comes from you, like you're bringing that mirror, and I think that'll land for a lot of people, right? There's something that we're too in our modern society, we don't have time to slow down. I remember feeling privileged because I had some time in the day to do my healing work, but a lot of people who work 9 to 5, they go, I don't have time to open this box. I need to feed the kids, get to work, get them to school, get groceries, cook, do all of these things. I don't have time to go to this box. Whether it's grief, whether it's things that they've been through, whether it's an accident that they've had that they have a part of them needs to reprocess, whatever that might be, there's the reality as well of that, right? And I don't know if you have anything where you work with
Yes.
clients like that and you help them titrate and open the box a little bit at a time.
Yeah. I really believe everyone has at least 10 minutes, or we
Mm,
must at least carve 10 minutes. I remember one of my clients, flight attendant, and I remember telling her, you gotta take that time, especially with the flight attendant job, especially any job where we're dealing with people, right? We're emotional beings and we have our own things going on. And when we are in a position where we need to give to others, we must, is a must to carve out, even if it's 10 minutes in the morning, where we sit and connect with ourselves. I am pretty sure, I am pretty sure that if a friend of yours, a dear friend of yours, right now was going through so much and she or he needed you every single day, even if it was for 10 minutes, I'm pretty sure you will find the time. You
mm.
must be able to do that for yourself.
So you're
10
talking
minutes at
about
least.
the relationship with yourself, that nurturing,
Yes,
nice, gentle talk. So
yes. You know
with
why?
mhm,
I'm so sorry. You know why? Because it's so important for you to connect with where you're at. What are you feeling? What are you going through? Because if you don't have that connection, anything that happens outside of you that can easily trigger you will easily trigger you
mhm.
because you're already more triggerable. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so we must, it's a must. I would dare to say it's a must.
So when you were eating, because you the grief with your dad and your own pain, did you end up going to that pain and healing it?
I had to, I was forced to.
Mm,
So what forced me, and I find this very interesting, if you do not get to the point where you face whatever you have to face, the universe will push you to face it.
yes. It's true.
So in 2020, my mom got very sick to the point where she didn't want to eat, she didn't want to drink, she didn't want to do anything. And here I am having to be her caretaker. It was so overwhelming. Here I am having my coaching business, serving others, being there for others. But yeah, I didn't have anyone to be there for me. And I remember during a mentorship program that I was a part of, I just broke down. And the coach that I had at the time, she told me, you're going to need someone else to help you,
Mm,
meaning a different kind of coach to help you. And this one, she specialized in grieving and caretaking. From the very first session with that grieving and caretaking coach, she noticed that I did not grieve my dad. She was like, do you realize, I know we're talking about your mom, but you did not grieve your dad. And it hit me like a ton of bricks because I knew she was right. So the universe forced me.
mhm. Yeah.
The universe brought it to my attention. the weight was not enough, even though it was obvious. And so when for as long as we keep disregarding whatever it is that we disregard,
Mhm.
at one point we're going to be hit with the reality that we can no longer avoid.
And when you say that, because I'm an anthropologist and I really care about healthy communities, but also the bigger world
Mhm,
and where we're going. And I feel that we avoid a lot of things that need to be addressed. And
yes.
we have no control over leadership and where they're at. But I feel there's a lot of avoidance. And if we centered on some core main values and principles, we could help to align things again. And if we don't, that the Titanic will hit the iceberg. And I think that is already a fact that's already happening because we've avoided it for a while now.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. But it'll force us to, so we'll have to come up with some new solutions. And
Yeah,
that's how it works individually and as a community and as a world, right? Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
I know for myself, I kept growing in certain ways and I had certain opportunities in my 20s. I was in the Okanagan in BC, Canada, and I kept doing these sabotaging behaviors. And when you're talking about that subconscious, that's 80% of us can be
Oh yeah.
subconscious if we bring it into the conscious. So I'd
Yeah.
sabotage awesome opportunities like radio show, like a TV thing, series on my poetry, all these things. I kept sabotaging
Yeah.
and big opportunities. I didn't feel worthy, but it took me some time to realize I didn't want my stepdad to find me. I did not want to be visible in the public eye. And I didn't know this was why I did this, right? And it stalled my career, all my aspirations. So I was working hard, I was pumping the gas pedal, but there was this mechanism that was breaking me, and that caused cognitive dissonance, uncomfortable enough for me to go, what is it? And I moved up north. I came back to the community where we were, when my mom lived with him and we were here as a child, and I faced my old story and I needed to still face and enter that. It was like going into the underworld and I needed to go and then come back up. And so it was a 4-year journey. And it's so funny. I believe in 4 force, just like the medicine wheel. I believe in 4-year cycles. And I have recently come up and gone, okay, I've done that. It took a lot of strength and courage to face and go into, because in my deep limbic system, there was shock and trauma that I actually needed to process out.
Mhm.
And we are like animals, right? We are animals. And so obviously our nervous system is the same as other mammals. When trauma happens, it stores, but normally animals shake it out. But because of our modern society, we hold back. And just like when you
Yes.
started the conversation saying, I'm just going to let myself be, I'm not going to hold back to be this, because it's
Yeah.
that same mentality. I've got to be this ideology of polished and perfect, but it's the same thing that harms people from not feeling what they need to. And people in some
Yeah.
countries would wail to grieve. They would wail,
Oh,
and it would come out their system, their body, their cells, their nervous system, all of their being, and then they would be able to move forward. But until whatever needs to come out and through happens, people will stay
yes.
stuck. And I feel there's just that all over imprinted
Mhm.
deep within, where we're not just allowing people to shudder it out of their nervous system, wail and cry and still be loved and accepted. My
Yes.
passion for that is why I have this podcast, to say, hey,
Mhm.
we are
Yeah.
safe to be human, and
Yes.
that's what's going to get us well again. And so
Oh
you are
yeah.
so in alignment with everything Simply Sacred stands for. I really hope people reach out and be inspired to do that individual work with you. I don't know if you can
Yeah.
share anything about what you offer or how you offer it.
Yes. Yes. And by the way, speaking of being yourself, if only you knew, like my eyes, seriously, when I do a podcast, again, I am alert. I am, and mind you, I think I'm pretty alert now. But what I'm trying to say is, I can feel my eyes and everything, and I'm still letting myself be. And before I say how what I offer and all that stuff, It is so freeing when you allow yourself to just be, because you can even feel it in your body that you relax.
Mm.
When you were mentioning the nervous system, before I would be so nervous to be anything that what I imagined. Now I'm like, okay, yeah, my eye is bothering me. I'm going to do this, but I'm going to keep talking. I'm going to keep showing up. So, what I offer, apart from one on one opportunity to work with me one on one, I also offer self study courses for those that may not be able to afford to work one on one. And the purpose of that is I want to be able to meet people where they're at, because I know what it's like to not have the resources at the moment to do certain things. And I don't want the resources to be a reason why you don't do the inner work. So I offer the one-on-one programs. It's 3-month program. I offer self-study courses on different topics, but all related to the relationship with yourself, self-discovery, and empowerment. I also have a private Facebook group. It's called Inner Globetrotters. I do monthly trainings. They are free, bi-weekly videos on different topics. I interview experts. So you're not only learning from me, you're learning from other people. I also offer journal prompts because it's so important for us to be connected with what's going on here, what's going on here, right? And yeah, that's what I have
I
that I
love
offer.
that.
Oh, and subscribe to the newsletter.
Yeah.
I do a newsletter every week. So yeah.
Beautiful. And they can all find that at your website, right?
Yes.
Aura Martinez.
www.auraemartinez.com.
Okay. And it'll also be in the write-up
Yeah.
description for on YouTube and on the podcast. That's awesome. So what are you doing in Italy? So I've been wanting to ask this. What are you doing in Italy?
Yes, I am here for work, actually.
Mhm.
I am here for work. I'm here every week. Apart from all the things that I do, I'm also a flight attendant. So for those that may be wondering, oh, I have a full-time job, but I want to do this, but I don't have time. I have to do that. I'm a caretaker too. You could do it, but it's about understanding how you function, what lights you up, what gives you energy. And
Mhm.
then from there, you'll be able to say, okay, now I can do this, now I can do that. So yeah, I'm here for work.
Love it. So is it overnight, like one day, so you and then you come back?
Just one day, and then I go back tomorrow.
And then where you go to? Where's home?
Oh, New York.
New York. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. New York State or New York?
Oh, New York, New York City, the
Wow.
Bronx.
Wow. I want to go to, there's a vocal opening sacred retreat near New York that I want to go to. So maybe I'll fly in there and we can have tea.
I would love that.
I would love that too. I love it. Okay. What else do you want to explore about the relationship with self? Because I could ask some more questions. I am thinking a lot right now about the wounded ego. I don't know if you know anything about that or the wounded child, but expressing itself with adults. Yes? Yes. Okay.
I really do believe the child holds the key, the child within us holds the key to how we're meant to be living, right? But it's as we get older and we listen to all these things, or you can't, or you this, or you that, or you're not good enough, that child gets wounded, right? And I think it's inner work, the key to really dismantling the things that don't belong to us. It's the key to healing the child within us.
Mm.
I have pictures of me with my hair all over the place. The child in me didn't care how my hair looked. She did not mind taking photos. You know what I'm saying? And it was as I was getting older, and here I am having all these ideas of how I look like, that I was holding back from the person that I always was, right? And
Mhm.
so when you notice that you were one way as a child and as an adult, you're another, that's a big key that there's probably some healing to do. Because I was always so outgoing, but I stopped being that way because of complexes, right? Because I didn't feel secure about myself, right? Because here I am thinking, oh, this doesn't look good, doesn't look pretty enough. Says who? When we think something negative about ourselves, that voice is not ours. As children, none of us are born with insecurities. If you look at children, they
Mhm.
don't mind um, running around in their Pampers and just Pampers. That's how confident they are. They're curious. They want to learn. Oh, let me touch this. Let me do this.
So the wildness and curiosity within me is my inner
Mhm.
child, and I love to be curious and I love to explore
Yeah.
curiously.
Yeah.
And in spaces
Mhm.
where the adults and people that have lost the connection of that, right? They can be very triggered by someone, and
Yes.
I've always bumped up against this. I'll go into spaces and I'll say the thing that everyone's feeling but no one is saying, but oh man, there's just triggers left. It's like I'm in a pinball match and then I'm like, okay, this is not my stuff, but I'm still impacted because I just want to curiously connect. That's how we're meant to attune.
Yeah.
That is our way of being. That's what it means to co-regulate in any space. And so I'm dealing with that right now. And I'm
Mhm.
going, it's not about that. It's about this. Let's hold this up. And so for me, I'm like, I think I need to just ground some lessons and acceptance. And this is going to happen in life. But how do I navigate through it in a new way? Because before it used to shut me down. I'd feel scared and alone or whatever it was because like, why can't we just create this awesome thing? And then it'd be like, nope, shut down. Because people don't want to feel their own emotions. So how do you deal with, you can become so attuned within yourself,
Mhm.
but maybe others aren't. Maybe that's just a different entire thought process. Like it's not a way of being for some. And what do you do in those spaces if you have to be in those spaces?
Mhm. I think it's so important for us to remember that the more we are our true selves, the more we're going to trigger other people.
Yeah.
And I've realized that because even with me, and I've learned not to care. And, but it was a process. It was a process. I'm going to share. It was a process. So when you can remember that the more authentically you are, the more you're going to trigger other people, the more you let that sink in. And at first, it may not sink in. At first, you may take it personally. At first, you may be like, oh my God, is there something wrong with me? But the more you just let it sink in, that they're dealing with their own issues.
Mm,
Some people, unfortunately, they are uncomfortable with our light.
mhm,
But the reason why they're so uncomfortable with our light is not that our light is what makes them uncomfortable. It's that our light probably reminds them of something that they're not doing,
mhm,
that they're not being.
mhm,
And when someone is in your face reminding you of what you could have been, what you're capable of, but you're not doing, that's pretty uncomfortable. That's pretty uncomfortable. And it's only uncomfortable to the degree that we don't look within and really get the value of that message.
mm,
See, when you understand that when someone being themselves, their beautiful selves, they're not doing something to harm you, they're not doing something to offend you. If someone's beautiful self is offending you, that's a sign for you to look within. If it's bothering you or offending you, that's for you to look within because there's some jewels there. So I'm going to share something else too. I'm going to be very vulnerable here.
mm.
And the reason why I'm going to be vulnerable here is because whoever listening, I want you to look, oh, how am I feeling this way about someone else? I remember when I wanted to be on TV, when I saw all these people being on TV, and here I am trying so hard and I'm not on TV, I was frustrated. I was angry. I was like, how is it that they are on TV and I'm capable and da 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 da? And so obviously I understood afterwards the wisdom of that. That frustration was just that deep desire to want to be on TV, right?
Mm,
And those people that I was seeing being on TV, because they were in my space, that was just a reminder that it was just a matter of time. That was going to happen for me. And
mhm,
it did. I was just not last night, but the night before on TV for the third time. So the reason why I'm sharing this is because sometimes we make the biggest mistake to be intimidated because of what someone else is doing because we would like to do it. We get bothered because perhaps the woman has the body that we would like to have, or she looks a certain way that we would like to look. We get bothered. Oh my God, how come this person found love and I didn't find love yet? If all of that is in your personal space, that's just a sign that you're so close to manifesting that. And if we can remember that, we won't be bothered by someone else's light. Someone else's light is permission for us to shine our light.
Yeah, I love when people are in their light. I
Yes.
celebrate that people when people go, I've done what makes me so happy. That is a joy. I love that. What I don't understand sometimes, and I think being neurodivergent, I'm like, why
Mhm.
would that bring up something? If I'm just sharing what I'm doing, why does that bring up something for someone so deeply? Can't I just share what I'm doing? What it's not about them, and people will make it about themselves. My issue, I'll hold that person with love and kindness and compassion, and I'll cheer them on. You can do it too, right? I think my freedom, I have such a freedom because I grew up at outside of town in nature, and I carry this freedom, and I feel that sometimes that is what provokes people. If I can't be free, like why can she? It's just a feeling. And it's not all people, but it's some that it triggers, right? This jealousy or envy. And it took me decades to understand that's actually what it is envy. And it's not my stuff, but I'll hold them in the light in love and shine to them that they also can do what they truly love, or show you are doing amazing things too. Do you see that? But it's when they try to then target me in order to try to stop me, because then it makes them more uncomfortable. That's when I have an issue with it. And I'm still trying to navigate. I'm still trying to navigate, like, you can't try to come in and sabotage me. I spend enough time trying to sabotage myself. I don't need anyone else trying to sabotage me.
That's a sign that they have inner work to do. There's a lot going on within them
Mhm,
because someone
mhm,
mature means growth, basically. If you look at the word maturity, it means growth. A person willing to grow would understand that they're feeling triggered, but not want to sabotage someone else. The moment someone wants to sabotage someone else, they have deep rooted issues.
they
And I
do.
would say this, for as much compassion as I may have for others, I'm very picky about who I have in my personal space.
Mhm.
So if I notice any funky, you're getting out of my space because I don't have time for that. And that's part of you loving you and protecting you, right? When you see your value, you're like, oh no, I have compassion for you, but you're not going to be in my personal space. No, thank you.
And this could be someone on your airline, right?
Yeah.
It's not someone you necessarily choose. It could be
Mhm,
somebody that you happen to have close proximity to
mhm,
due to circumstance. Are
mhm.
you going to change your whole airline that you work for? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I know that for work, it could be tricky. I'm not going to get into the whole airline industry stuff, but it's a little different from a 9 to 5 job. But I'm just very picky with my personal space. I don't think I could not tolerate being in a 9 to 5 job with
Mm,
someone with a very heavy energy. And I'm talking about a bad, I would not be able to tolerate it. I'm very sensitive to energy.
mhm,
And I would highly recommend people to be very mindful of who they have in their personal space. Be very mindful. Be very mindful of who you're choosing
mm,
because who you're choosing is also a reflection of you,
mhm,
right? Because we choose based on how we feel about ourselves, what we think we deserve, right?
mm,
Our beliefs about perhaps the opposite sex, if when it comes to love or the same sex, whatever it is that you like, right? There's so many things to consider when it comes to the people that we choose, especially romantic relationships. Oh my God, someone that close to you, the
mm,
people closest to you have the biggest effect on you. So you want to know, you want to understand how do they feel about themselves? How do they feel about their life? Where do they see themselves in 5 years? That's important,
mhm,
especially if you want to walk together with someone.
mhm.
Sometimes the reason why relationships break is because they realized we were never perhaps compatible to begin with.
Yeah.
We choose based on our at the time needs, or even hunger, like I like to call it. When I say hunger, a need that became an excessive need to such a degree that it became unhealthy. Like when you're hungry, you'll eat even a salty meal, even though it's not healthy for you. And so it's so important for you to understand where that person is here, where that person is here, the choices that they're making, because it says a lot about themselves and how they feel about themselves in their life. These are
Mhm,
things to consider.
mhm.
These are all things to consider.
So I'm hearing you say I should quit my job. I'm just kidding.
Okay. You're so funny. Me personally, I could not.
No,
I
I
had an
know.
experience in the past that it forced me to, like, because I couldn't stand one person, and it was an office job at the time. I just couldn't. I just couldn't.
I think
I'm
that
not telling you to quit your job.
knowing my need, saying my need,
Yeah.
saying statements like we all deserve respect. That's a fact. No one can argue that. Like,
Yes.
let's argue right now that everyone doesn't deserve respect. That's not gonna happen. So we just draw that line. Everyone deserves respect.
Yeah.
It's simple. We make it so complicated, and that's why I love Simply Sacred, right? It's so simple. I
Yes.
deserve love. You
Yes.
deserve love. We deserve love. We deserve
Yeah.
respect and kindness. Let's co-create that together. And if someone can't, they aren't capable, or they're not willing, then there needs to be an action after that. It's that simple. And
Yes.
so sometimes I share a bit of an explorative process where I'm going through just to help model with that, like with what you're saying as an example, because I want to be vulnerable and authentic and where I'm at too.
Mhm.
And because we're all on a journey. I think life
Oh,
is a
yeah.
journey. And I think
Yeah.
that it's all about relationship, whether that
Yeah.
comes through relationship with ourselves, the earth, and with other people. And when we steer from kindness, then there's a disharmony and we need to bring it back to kindness. This is something that landed super deep to me at the end of my first degree. I was exploring cultures and I was
Mhm.
exploring like civilization choices, what led to wellness, what didn't lead to wellness. I was just deeply curious. And that's
Mhm.
what it came down to. It's just it all comes down to kindness.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we make it so complicated, more than it needs to be. And so sometimes, yeah, when you're being kind to yourself, you're choosing to say no to something else. But
Mhm.
for some, they don't have that privilege. Like for myself, I could. I could leave my job and be okay. But for some, they
Mhm.
don't, they may not have that privilege in the
That's
same
true.
way. Or they may need to align a bunch of stuff first before feeling like they
Yes.
or
And
same
that
with
is so true.
relationships, right? Like some towns have like a women's shelter, some,
Mhm.
but men don't have a men's shelter. Like it should go both
Yes.
ways. Hey?
Yeah, interesting. Yes.
Yeah. But
Interesting.
that option and that ability to go, one of the leading reasons why people don't leave is because they feel that that financial dependence and that's that fear, right? Like
Oh,
that's
yeah.
very Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like it's very survival first. And if there's
Yes.
kids involved, protecting the survival of the child, even at the cost of something else, right? Like this will always come first, those baseline needs as mammals that we have. And if they have their housing set up, maybe their dignity or pride won't let them go to something like a shelter though,
Yeah.
right? Oh, why
Yes.
would I end up there? This affects every class of people. Like women's shelters are there for women to
Yeah.
home to make them be safe and get them to that next step in their journey. So sometimes that's the biggest barrier where women won't go as well, right? That
Yeah,
judgment.
there's so many factors. Yeah,
Mhm.
there's so many factors.
There
And
are. Well,
everybody's situation is different, and even where they are mentally and how they view things. So you're right. Yeah.
I was interviewed in a documentary recently, and I wanted to say they asked me about wellness, and it's similar to what you're saying. I said it's what it comes down to what we say yes and no to. And but then I needed to say a caveat. Like I needed to say, I understand that for some, they could have 7 people in a home. So for me to
Mhm.
sit here and say, be careful what you consume around you in your media, in your what people are saying, for some, they don't have that privilege. There's 10 people in a home, or and some of those people might not be good to them, but that's what they have. That's their choice. And there's a different level of privilege there. And I think that it's important to note that.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm often advocating for the big T trauma stuff because lately I've been watching some beautiful healers, spiritual teachers, wellness people, like people that are out there and vocal. And what they say is great, but it's not, it's beyond the people who are living from big T trauma. And there's millions and millions and
Mm.
millions of people living from big T trauma and in those realities. And so what they're saying isn't actually applying for those people. And so I've been thinking very curiously about where are those bridges, hey, from that important work, but that important work isn't available or possible for them yet, or they
Mm.
can't see it yet, or they don't know they're worthy, like they can't see it. There's always that random child that grows in the house and they already know that they're gonna go and they're gonna be beyond the trauma and the wounds and the cycles. They already
Yes.
know, right? They're already deep
Yes.
in that.
Yes.
But for some, they're not. And
Yes.
sometimes it takes a wake-up call, sometimes it takes
Mm.
a jump in their matrix, in their paradigm,
Yes.
and be
Oh,
ready
yes.
for that paradigm shift, or the right person is able to connect with them and then they see there's this whole other world.
Yes.
I'm very curious about that right now because it's like, where's the bridges? I've been trying to help to build bridges or see where bridges
Yes.
can be built because
Yes.
we cannot leave people behind. Like we can't.
Mm.
I feel that as a society, like we can't leave people behind.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That is so beautiful.
Your work you're doing is so beautiful. So if I can be a bridge for people to come and find your work, I'm going to. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. I guess we could wrap up. Is there anything else that you wanted to share?
All the answers are within you. I think sometimes we don't think it's within us, but it is.
Mm.
Healing is the way. Healing is the way. It truly is. To the degree that you notice that there's such a huge distance between where you are and where you would like to be, yes, it could be some skills that you need to learn, some things outside of you, but the majority, I can almost guarantee you, it's within. Because when you learn to see yourself with so much clarity, you don't get deterred by what in the outside world. You don't believe the lies about yourself that you can't or whatever. You don't believe that. You're able to stay consistent even when the 3D reality is telling you, nope, this isn't happening. Nope, this isn't, right? You're able to believe more your inner truth than what the outer world is telling you. I think that's one of the things that messes us up so much, right? We think this is true because this is what we can see, this is what we can feel, this is what we can touch. But we forget that there's a truth that goes beyond all this, and that truth is within us. So even if the outer world is telling you, no, this is impossible. Can I share something else really quick? So I remember telling my dad, this is when I was in college, I was thinking of becoming a lawyer, either that or a psychologist, right? No money to travel the world. I told my dad, I don't know why, but I know I'm going to travel the world. My dad was like, you better put your feet on the ground. I'm like, no, my feet are on the ground. You don't get it. I know that's going to happen. And sooner or later, I am going to tell you I went to the Vatican. Guess where my first trip was as a flight attendant?
Where?
To Rome. To Rome. So I saw the Vatican. And I told my dad, I told you. But it wasn't my dream to be a flight attendant. I did not dream of becoming that. But that's the way traveling manifested for me. That happened by accident, by the way. Totally by accident. Okay. And even that, there's a story to that book, but I'm not going to get into that. And so I knew I was meant to write a book. I just didn't know what. I said that to my dad. I knew I was supposed to do a TED talk. That happened 9 years later after I knew. And so the reason why I'm sharing that is because many times we think because We don't see the way. We don't see the resources. We don't see how this can be possible.
Mhm.
But if you know in your heart that you're meant for a loving relationship, that you're meant for more money, that you're meant to travel more, that you're meant to whatever, it is possible for you. But you have to do your best to ignore the outer reality and believe more and lean more into your inner reality, because then you're going to see that you're going to get synchronicities, you're going to get signs. And if you follow that, if you trust more what it is that you know is true for you, you're going to follow the universe's breadcrumbs. That's the only breadcrumb you follow. Not men breadcrumbs, not women breadcrumbs, the universe breadcrumbs. I just have to say that. But when you start following those breadcrumbs, you're going to see how all the things that you desire start coming together. So important. So no matter where you are in your situation, if you're in a relationship that you're not happy in, but you're there because, hey, I need the financial, right? I can't afford on my own. Or you desire to travel more of the world, but you don't know how. Or whatever it is, it's possible, but you got to lean into your inner truth
Mhm.
instead of all of this.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I love her. You're gonna come on again.
I will love it. I love this conversation. And mind you, like my eyes are so like, oh, because I only slept 1 hour, but I love this. So I'm like energized. I love your energy and your space. So thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming. And make sure y'all go to her website right now. Go type it in right now, auraemartinez.com. And she's got some cool stuff and you can access right away. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.